Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. I'm Tara Bowen-Biggs, joined as always by Blazers outsider Danny Marang.
Oh, hey, Tara, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I just flew in from Tennessee, and boy, are my arms tired.
Oh, God, I made that joke last week to Joe, and now I know how he feels.
You already made that joke? Damn it, we got to start all over again.
Joe got back from Hawaii on the set, and I was making, jokes.
Okay, well, that's my joke.
So how was Memphis?
Well, take all the wind out of my sails. It was great. Unfortunately, the Blazers did not win. That was just one of the things that we were there to do. When we booked our tickets to go on this trip, I didn't think about the fact that it was going to be the last game of a 7-game road trip. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I felt kind of bad. But I brought a few treats for the broadcast team from home, and I think they appreciated
Brookie's
that.
Cookies for the road.
Pardon me?
Brookie's Cookies for the road.
Yeah, I didn't bring her cookies. I brought candy, but they had Stumptown coffee in them, and she said that she really needed them to get through the game. So I hope that she shared them. But it was fun. It's fun to go to games in other arenas and kind of look at it from the other fans' perspective. So Chandler Parsons got totally booed when he came in, and I was like, oh.
Yeah,
It wasn't surprising, I guess,
really,
because I know that he has not made friends in Memphis, and I actually thought that they had separated and that he had gone from the team, but I guess they reconciled a little bit for the kids or something.
I think it was something between him and Gasol, and that's after Gasol was traded, he was brought back. So
that's just weird though, because Gasol's been there for so long.
Yeah, and I don't think it was them siding with Parsons over Gasol.
Yeah, it was just that
happenstance.
It was just clear to bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what it did, though? It made me appreciate it. Okay, so, the end of last year when things were looking pretty ugly for Myers Leonard and the booing happened and people got kind of mad. I was one of the people that got mad about it. It was like, hey, we can't do that. And one of the things that even when, he was when Myers was struggling the most, people always said, he's a good guy. And the people who were complaining were, doing it, trying to base it on, his, or, ostensibly blaming it on his lack of production or whatever. But, there was real vitriol that was being aimed at Parsons. And I was just glad that it didn't ever seem to really get to that. It got kind of sad with Myers when he got booed. But I was glad that it didn't get to the point that it seems to have gotten to in Memphis with Chandler, and they still have him for another year.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is. And things aren't always going to go well everywhere you go, and I don't know. It's just when I look at both those instances, I'm like, really? If you want to boo Raymond Felton, sure, that's always allowed, but the levels where some people go and it comes to weird.
It comes to the point, and something that I want to talk about later in a little while anyway, is that, when Evan Turner came and everybody had a hard time with his contract, he at least is playing. He may seem to be overpaid by a lot of people, and, maybe he is, compared to other players of his caliber or whatever, but he's contributing. He's an important person on the team, not just on the court, but also off of the court. And so it's nice that if we're going to be paying premium price for someone, that at least he's contributing. And, Chandler Parsons, contributed a few points, and, people just were not happy to have him on there. Plus, I don't know if you watch Gilmore Girls, but he looks just like Kirk from Gilmore Girls the older he gets.
Yeah,
it's
Gilmore Girls, right up my alley.
You never know.
When you think of Danny Marang, you think of Blazers basketball and Gilmore Girls.
You know what, Dan? I don't want to make any assumptions. You know that I do not make any assumptions. So we saw that game, and after we went to, in addition, we just did some really great, awesome sightseeing in Memphis, which if you haven't been there before, I highly recommend it. We went to the Stax Museum, which was all about soul music. That's the recording studio where like Booker T and the MGs were the house band. So super cool history there. And then we went to the Civil Rights Museum. That was amazing. Something that everybody should do. And then we drove to Nashville. And while I was in Nashville, I crashed a Grizzlies watch party with the guys from Fast Break Breakfast podcast. We're hosting a Grizzlies watch party in Nashville. So I attended that, and I won a Chandler Parsons yoga mat. Actually, somebody else won it, and then because I said that I wanted it, he gave it to me, and he's like, I don't need to be doing downward dog and looking at Chandler Parsons'
the things
face.
they're probably going to do with that mat, whoever came up with that's probably grateful that you're not disgracing it the way that they probably would have.
So I just worked out and used my Chandler Parsons yoga mat, and it's awesome.
So is it like a little picture of Chandler Parsons, or is it like Chandler Parsons?
No, it says yoga, and his head is the O. It's so good.
Wow! Like, was this something that's like it was actively purchased, or did somebody like make this in their basement?
No, I think that it was swag that I don't know if they gave it away on some night and it was like leftover or whatever. They also had a Marc Gasol pepper grinder for the grit and grind grinder, and that one was super cool.
See, now that's spot on.
Yeah, that was super cool,
yeah.
Which is why the yoga mat was just so much not cool.
Yeah, everything about it is amazing.
Comparatively, yeah. Yeah, and I did get to I watched the Oklahoma City game in a honky-tonk bar, but the bar closed because, the time change is different. So I had to, run out to the lift, and it was pouring down rain. So we jumped in the back of the car, and I listened or actually watched on the ESPN Gamecast, the last 30 seconds of that game and the overtime. And I'm not proud of how I conducted myself. I may have yelled a lot in the car.
Yeah.
Because I had, but I guess a lot of people were also having the same reaction. So let's talk about some basketball. Should we start with the OKC game? That kind of seems like the biggest meatball, right?
Yeah,
that we should start with.
Go ahead and start with the whatever that was.
Well, I mean, so is it how mad? Okay, aside from all the shenanigans and the reffing and all of that stuff, just in general, how did you feel about how the Blazers played?
I mean, Dame had a absolutely bonkers night, but I hated the way they played.
51. He had 51, and CJ. How much did CJ have?
I mean, they both.
20,
yeah, they both had good nights.
25, something like that.
But I hated the way they played. Outside of Dame, almost nobody had any kind of aggression. Well, Nurkic had some aggressiveness too. CJ was a little bit, but I was disappointed in Jake. Really disappointed in Rodney.
Barely anybody could score.
Yeah,
and
Ennis,
how does Kanter go 1 for 6?
Yeah, that was Ennis was frustrating. There was a lot of just the team reverted back more to what they looked like against the Pelicans in the playoffs, and when they were faced with adversity, for them to just revert back to those tendencies was really disappointing.
It was a little disheartening to. Well, so for me, I was thinking as the second half was progressing, Dame was on fire and he was hitting everything. And he was playing hero ball. And I was like, don't play hero ball. You have teammates. You guys are a team now. You've worked all these years together and developed all this continuity so that you could be a team. And there he was taking all of the shots. However, nobody else was making any. So I was conflicted trying to figure out, should he have tried a little bit longer to try to get other people involved? Because remember the night that Rodney Hood went off, he didn't even go off until pretty late in the second half. Should Damian have tried longer to, see if anybody else could get something going? Or was it just because it was OKC and it was Russ, that was just how it was going to be that night?
realistically, I think Dame was trying to get people going for a long enough period. Then he was like, okay, well, had your chance, got to keep going, got to get buckets. And I mean, that's indicative when you've got a 50-plus point night and 9 assists. But it was there's some give and take here in that a lot of his creation was basically off pick and roll or drive and kick. Like, they ran more pick and roll in that game than I've seen them run all season. Dame Nurk, Dame Nurk, Dame Nurk, Dame Nurk, and they just pounded it into the ground. And it was like, okay, this is getting a little weird. Like, it...
Why do you think that's weird? Just because they were doing it more than usual? Because that's usually a pretty successful play.
Yeah, but, I mean, they were coming down and just running it in the same spot against the same guys. The Thunder were playing it the same way, and it was just like, guys, this isn't going to work. Like, it works for a team like Houston because everybody knows what's going to happen. They're going to go 5 out, have 5 shooters on the floor, and they're going to space you out, and they're going to run Chris Paul and James Harden down your throat. That's just what they do. The difference is that's their offense, basically, is they're going to spread you out and they're going to attack you in space. Portland was doing this with non-shooters on the floor. There were times where there was little to no movement anywhere. It was just... I just didn't like what I saw offensively outside of, sure, Damian Lillard's production was great, but how they went about doing it and how everybody else really just didn't show up. There's this weird juxtaposition of, yeah, I want Dame to be more creative and I want to see him get other guys involved, but at some point in time, the other guys also have to step up. So,
do you think, I mean, was it just another one of those nights where nobody on the Blazers could hit anything? Or, were they being played in some way by OKC in a way that was making it hard for them to make it?
I mean, yeah, OKC is making it more difficult for everybody, obviously. When they run pick and roll coverage, they've got Paul George, right there. If he's not in the play, he's usually one man away with Steven Adams playing behind. That alone is enough to blow up a lot of coverages. Throw in guys like Terrence Ferguson who are working hard to play defense, and their length, their athleticism, they're able to sit there and just bother people all night long. And that's why I was kind of disappointed to not see the Blazers try to make the defense move, get them going side to side. It's weird. That's really all I can get down to it. And these high leverage games, everybody can keep talking about how, well, Portland was right there. Well, Portland was right there. Well, Portland was right there. Well, we're down at the point of the season where you need to start showing you're winning those games.
Right, and it's happened 4 times. So that's what I think is more disturbing. On the other hand, Portland was right there.
Yeah,
you don't want to see them having it be that close, though. You want to be able to have them figure out, like, unlock something.
Yeah, and it's 4 times that's pretty indicative. And I know the Blazers have been close, but if somebody keeps getting you over and over and over again, does that mean that they just got lucky a dozen times, or does that mean that they're better than you?
Yeah. I don't know. I certainly really do not want to see Oklahoma City in the playoffs, but I think it seems like a pretty good possibility that could be what happens.
Oh God,
so
yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit more. One of the things that I thought also stood out to me in the Oklahoma City game is the bench is just not what it used to be earlier at least at times this season. I mean, they had a good bench night the other night, but by and large, how big of a loss is Evan Turner, over these last several games that he's missed?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to talk about in this context. First of all is that I think if you've watched this team post All-Star break, yeah, they're 6-3 and they're looking pretty good, but the bench has struggled to find any kind of consistency, and the only real offense they're running is Kanter post-ups, mid-post-ups for Rodney Hood, and trying to get Jake Layman in the open court. Oh, and Harkless when he pops in there from time to time getting a steal and dunk. But that's their offense right now. There's no semblance of offense being run effectively with Turner out. And I know Seth Curry has had a couple good shooting nights, but something that I dug into when I was prepping here with Tara is that Seth Curry's assist rate is dropped to a precipitously low number for his career, and it's kind of ridiculous.
Assist rate is the number of assists that he gets that he contributes while he's on the floor.
So
is that what the assist rate is?
The exact definition is the estimated percentage of teammate field goals a player assists while he's on the floor.
Okay.
So for perspective, Evan Turner's at 22.7. Seth Curry is at 7.1. So
wow.
three times the rate.
What's Damian?
29.2.
Okay. So Damian 29.2. Evan Turner around 22, and then Nurkic, our third 18. Backup point guard is 7.1.
And here's the thing: is we talked about this when we were coming into the season, and when I said that Seth was a very good pick and roll point guard, you were surprised. Mm-hmm. And right now, it looks like the person that's playing for the Blazers is more of what the guy that I think you had in line in your head, because his assist rate is right there with Harrison Barnes, who's one of the biggest black holes in the NBA right now. And the ball is just sticking. It is absolutely unequivocally sticking. During the Phoenix game, I actually got up and yelled at the screen and was like, would you please move the ball for the love of God? And I'm watching Biggs roll to the rim over and over again, and Seth's just got his head down, hunting for a shot. That's an okay attitude to have as the second or third option on the bench. Not as the guy who's supposed to be running the offense. With Evan not out there, things are falling apart, and I think that's probably a little bit weird for anti-ET folks out there.
Right. Well, a couple of things. I mean, he plays fairly frequently alongside either Dame or CJ as they're in kind of that transitional, okay, I'm not going to handle the ball, I'm going to run around and let somebody else be the point guard. So you see him in there in those situations, and I have to look and go, oh, wait, is it Dame or CJ in right now? You know, because I'm basically just watching the ball, and that's being handled by Seth Curry. So there's, that's what he's doing when he's coming in. And what I would remember seeing Evan Turner do when he comes in is I see him coming in and like really running sets. And like I see him sitting there at the top of the key, scanning with his eyes, looking where everybody is, doing some pointing, putting his hand up, making a call, and like making something happen that way. So it's a little bit slower and a little bit more set, I think, when Evan Turner is on the floor. But it seems like when Seth is on, it's just more just Seth.
Yeah, I think ultimately when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter who Seth's with. His role has been the same. As weird as that may be, like I've seen a few instances of him running the offense, but more often than not, it doesn't matter if it's Dame or it's CJ, if it's Evan, working as the primary playmaker facilitator. Seth is much different from what I saw 2 years ago. Look, the guy that I saw in Dallas was running an offense, and that's a stark contrast to what we have right now with how he's playing. And don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic shooter. I'm not against him shooting. I'm looking at this Portland team right now, and I want to be excited, Tara. Like I want to believe that that they can get out of the first round. That the addition of Rodney Hood, of Enes Kanter, of Jake Laban's emergence, Seth Curry being the backup point guard as opposed to Shabazz Napier. Like all of these things, I want them to be good, positive things that bear out in the results. But this is the time, I think, of the season where you have to figure out who's going to do what needs to be done. And there have been times so far this season where I think Seth's got some blinders on. I think Aminu's gone and chased some rebounds. Harkless' energy has obviously waned, and it looks better now. But I think right now, this last 15-game stretch, it becomes very, very evident who is important and in what roles, and asking them to deliver upon those roles consistently so you know what the rotation is going into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. And you touched on Harkless, and I think Harkless has been playing really well. Yes, and the only exception being the OKC game, which I was kind of frustrated by. But otherwise, he has been very good.
So the thing that interests me about Harkless, and I'm not sure how to think about it, is that this season his 3-point shooting has not been what it was before, especially lately. It has really, really, really fallen off.
Tanked.
However, between January, February, and March, even as his 3-point shooting got worse and worse and worse, the number of his points per game has actually increased.
Yeah.
Because he's found a bunch of other ways to score, and that's mostly around the rim, either cutting or getting putbacks or being there to have somebody dish it off to him.
Hallelujah.
Well, and so I thought that what we wanted were guys who could shoot threes to spread the floor, and he's not spreading the floor, but is the second best option to have somebody that you make somebody chase him.
Yeah, I mean.
Because he's not spreading the floor.
No, he's not. And that part does frustrate me, but the defense has been better than at any point in time this season. His defense, yes. Mm-hmm. It's not just the steals. The steals are nice, but his aggressiveness, his anticipation, he's got a little more of a bounce in his step, and you can see that it's manifesting itself in how he moves. You can see he's quicker. And he's more into it. When somebody's turned off for a possession, you can see it. The problem was Mo wasn't ever turning on, so it was just this lethargic kind of, for the NBA, pace that stood out. But when you see him really engaged, he's like the Energizer Bunny. And we've seen over the last couple games Mo Harkless getting a steal, taking it in transition, and dunking. Mm-hmm. Tara, what have we been talking about on the podcast for the last 2 years? All I've ever wanted from Mo Harkless. Give me the damn energy.
Energy, yeah.
You're a 6'8", 230-pound small forward who can. You saw the dunk against the Suns, right?
Yes, the one that was right after
Nurkic.
Right after. Oh God, that Nurkic dunk was so great.
He ended Kelly Oubre, but Harkless takes a step inside the free throw line, raises up, and Statue of Liberty's it. There were times this season, Tara, where he was afraid to go to the rim for a layup, and now it's this guy. And
I wonder. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's night and day, and I know the injury, this and that. That doesn't explain why it hasn't been there for the past 3 years. This level of aggressiveness, finishing at the rim, has not been there in his time here in Portland, save post All-Star break.
So can we just be glad that it's here now?
No, I am.
Okay, I have a theory that you're going to think is super wackadoodle, but when I was watching all of his buckets for the last week, I was watching all the times that he scored around the rim for the last week, and I've noticed a connection with him and Nurkic, and I don't know how long it's been there or if it's new. I've just noticed it lately. Over the last couple of weeks, a lot of times, if Nurkic is on one side of the bucket and he's trying to get it up and he can't get it up through the three guys that are guarding him, he gives that little handoff to Harkless, who's right next to him. I've been seeing the two of them playing next to each other, sharing that space under the bucket. And then as I was watching the all his makes. I was watching Yusuf Nurkic's reaction to all of Harkless's makes, and Nurkic is just delighting in Harkless's success. And it's really fun to see how excited, sometimes he gives him a big hug, sometimes he slaps him on the butt or whatever. But Harkless is clearly, I think that he and Nurkic have connected in a way that I didn't see before. And I started getting fanciful and thinking about the fact, how Nurkic absolutely loves everything about Damian Lillard. He talks about him, his leadership, how much Damian meant to him as a player when he first got to Portland, and blah, 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 blah. I'm wondering if Nurkic was the person who was able to connect with Mo in a way that other people couldn't. Just because watching their chemistry on the court, it just makes me think that they have really been spending some time together, because they seem just to be really in tune. And I was just hey, maybe it was Nurkic who had some of his own struggles, when he came from Denver and had things rough in Denver, and he came to Portland, things were great, and then he kind of fell back a little bit, and just maybe the two of them spending time together, either on the court or off the court, maybe that has been something that has helped Harkless have this sustained aggression over the last few weeks. Either that or they're injury. I don't know. What do you think about the two of them together?
I don't care what it is. They can be best friends. They can hate each other. I just want this level of effort and production from him. Like, it just makes things so. All of the free points, basically all the points they get from Harkless are free. Post All-Star break, it's like finding extra money that Tooth Fairy left, because it's usually in the open court, in transition, and a high efficiency shot. Like he's not pulling up for step back fadeaways in the mid range. It's a dunk or a three.
Yeah, they're easy buckets. I mean, the threes are not coming easy for him, but the ones close to the rims are.
Yeah, and his field goal percentage is nuts right now. Like he's just getting to the rim, and when he's there, it's good. I mean, it's just like. So that's nice to see, but again, kind of get back full circle, and we got a little bit off track here, obviously talking about Evan Turner. Not having Turner on the floor with the second unit has been iffy at best, and I think it's made the Blazers a bit more reliant on getting production from Harkless, from Hood, from Layman, and it kind of gums things up, and I think the Blazers are going to need Turner more than they know, and I'm wondering what that's going to mean for Portland going into the playoffs and the rotation, because to get 10 deep, you have to be, obviously the starters. Then you have Kanter, Hood, Layman, that's 8. Turner, 9. I mean...
and Curry.
As I say, I was like, you have Curry and Collins still.
Well, because if Curry is not the primary ball handler, if he's somebody who can pass it off if he needs to, but he can shoot. I mean, they just need shooters. They need people who can sink those shots.
Yeah, and that's obviously the outside problem here with even though Harkless has renewed sense of urgency and energy, the 3-point shooting still hasn't been great.
No, it's but fortunately CJ's has it hasn't leveled off completely, but he's had some real nice nights where it's like, oh yeah.
CJ. Post All-Star break, CJ's shooting 45% from 3.
We'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, right post All-Star break, he's hovering at that 50, 40, 90 line. So I think last I looked, he was at like 48% from the floor, and I want to say 89 from the free throw line. Like he was right there. And as crazy as it is, I remember looking at all the post All-Star break stats, and I think it was like Harkless-Nurkic, Kanter all had like roughly the same field goal percentage. So even though each one of them have had a rough night, they're all at like 55 to 56% from the field. And it's kind of funny if people think about, Harkless hasn't been. I mean, he's been good, but he's struggled from 3. It's like, well, yeah, but he's also shooting like 56% from the floor, and he's giving you.
Yeah, he's killing it, getting himself to the rim.
Yeah, and then the other part of this is that he's giving you high efficiency shots. So, I mean, you can't really get mad about it. Oh, also, he's giving you actual production that wasn't there all season. So, it's nice to see Harkless in a roundabout way. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, no, it is nice to see him, and I don't know why Aminu has been struggling lately, but if it means that Harkless is playing well, I mean, you know me, you know how much I love Aminu, but Harkless
is more important to this team, realistically.
Exactly. I mean, he's more important to the long term of the team, and Aminu has obviously, I appreciate everything that he does and everything, but he's in there night in and night out, giving you his defensive production. The threes, until lately, he was a lot more efficient. He's in a slump right now when it comes to the shooting.
Well, I mean, realistically, everyone save CJ is struggling from 3 post All-Star break. Like the Blazers as a team are not shooting the ball great.
Well, maybe they can get all their misses out of the way now.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, realistically,
during the playoffs, they can play well. So I have to admit, I'm cooling a little bit to Kanter right now. I guess kind of my big thing was, like I said before, how does he go 1-6 against OKC, who he knows, like.
I think that's a case of getting up for that game. I think
trying to do too much.
Yeah, because honestly, a lot of his looks, I was like, that's a good shot for him normally. Like he's just got great touch around the rim and everything rimmed out. It's just a rough night. And honestly, that OKC game, and I'm not making any excuses for it, first home game after a 7-game and 15-day road trip with a day off. Mm-hmm. So it's basically like an eight-game road trip. So guys being tired. I mean, Kanter just got to the team and just started on the trip. He hasn't been home in a while. The team as a general hasn't been home. But as far as Kanter specifically goes, he's not a great defender, and for everybody's like, oh, get Kanter out of there, or make sure Collins is alongside him. Remember that the guys that are in front of him are bad. I mean, that realistically, Dame, CJ, Seth, and like that's turnstiles on the perimeter. And it doesn't matter which of those three guys is out there. That's somebody that Kanter has to cover up for. And that's not what he is. That's not what he does. It just shows you how good Nurkic has been defensively this year, that they can cover up for Dame and CJ on the perimeter. And, listen, I'm not making excuses for Kanter because Kanter's been bad defensively, but I saw a bunch of people hopping down Kanter's throat and Myers Leonard's throat the other day when the roll man is catching behind the play and finishing after, Nurkic, Kanter, Myers, they're all stepping out and they're taking away the drive much further away than they should have to because the guards are offering little to no resistance. But the whole Kanter point, you're not wrong, Tara, as far as like cooling on him. I think people forgot that, he's not a good defender. But I think some of those things are getting exasperated because he's not producing on offense. Like let's say instead of going 1 of 6, Tara, he goes 5 of 6. Don't you think the narrative is much, much different?
Oh, yeah. That's very different.
So the Blazers probably win that game, and Kanter's a productive part of it. One thing I hate about plus minus is like, hey, look, the bench guys played against bench guys and it was whatever, or the bench guys played against half a starting lineup and lost. It's like individual plus minus is such a weird number that you have to kind of bear it out over the season. And while Kanter's is not good right now, I think if you give it some time to equal out, I bet you his production outweighs what he gives up on the defensive end.
Yeah, I honestly, I was not expecting. I was expecting actually much worse on defense, and I think he's completely passable. I don't think he's great, but I don't think he does a bunch of like obvious boneheaded things. The thing that I thought we were going to be getting more consistent. Offense. I thought we're going to get way more offensive rebounds and putbacks like we did those first couple of games. And I guess those were just like adrenaline games, and he's just kind of like come back down a little bit.
Not just that, but the way rebounding is right now, I think there's an adjustment here is how Portland is going to rebound. Like if teams are hitting threes or taking more threes, it's harder for big to secure a rebound, off a long bounce as opposed to Portland going to the rim. And I think you'll see as Portland in those games where Nurkic and Kanter really offensive rebounded the ball incredibly well, they were attacking the rim a ton. And so there's just a rim action there. And so I think that's going to go back and forth depending on the opponent. But Kanter's always going to give you that effort. But with offensive rebounds, it's one of those numbers that can definitely vacillate back and forth. Like one game guy could have 6, the next game he has none. But hey, you look at the averages, got 3 a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen him. Like when he first came, I thought that they were going to play Collins alongside him as the 4, and that did not happen right away. They've tried that a few times in some of the games against their less strong opponents. Let's say they've given the two of them some minutes together. And, obviously you just talked about plus minus not being your favorite stat. But in the lineups where they play together, they're not bad. They're not terrible. And, at least against some of these lesser opponents. And I'm figuring it's because they need to keep giving Collins run. But some of these critical games, maybe they're not ready to put him in very much. But at least, against Cleveland, against Charlotte, against Phoenix, Collins got to get in there and play some of the 4 alongside Kanter.
Yeah, no, and that's something we talked about off air. I figured that if they got some run, it would be in those kind of lower leverage situations. I don't see how they realistically want to have Evan Turner. Just kind of coming full circle again. They want to have Evan Turner run that second unit. You can't have Evan out there with Kanter and Zach. For people could talk about Zach making or not making growth, whatever. It's right now he's not an offensive weapon. He may have potential with his footwork, but his footwork isn't there. He may have a potential as a shooter, but his ability to shoot is not there or consistent yet. So you can't. Have him
you might think that
out there with those guys.
But you might think that with Kanter as the more offensive weapon, Colin could pair with him and play defense.
Yeah,
but you're saying in a lot of situations they can't afford the luxury of not having Collins play offensive, have some offensive weapons as well.
But the other thing is like there's this kind of dynamic where we want to play Zach as this stretch five. Well, he doesn't stretch. The defenses don't. There's no gravity, and he's not coming back and making opponents pay enough to justify having him standing in the corner or popping out off a pick and pop. So Kanter needs to operate inside. That's where he lives. So all of a sudden Zach starts creeping closer and closer, and now the space that Evan's got to operate in, where he's creating from the middle of the floor, that's tighter and tighter. So,
Evan's mid-range, he's a lot more crowded.
Yeah, so
his favorite spot.
And that's why I think you're seeing Stotts play with these Jake Layman at the 4 lineups. Jake, he was okay, but it wasn't enough. And how many guys is it enough for in the OKC game where he got matched up against Paul George later in the game? And they ended up pulling Layman out and going with Aminu, even though Aminu's offense wasn't productive. So you see these kind of holes in these certain places where even in that situation where maybe Collins is the guy you go to, like realistically, but you can't go to him yet because on the other side, he's not even across the Aminu threshold offensively. So it's like, I don't know, how do I want to get another defender on the floor, but I got to give somebody who gives me something on the other end right now. So I think you're right. I think we're blowouts or lesser opponents on the schedule. You're going to see Zach get some minutes. Like, it's like live OJT, right? All right, everything we've worked in practice over the last couple weeks, here you go. Go ahead and work on those things. And I think that's kind of how they play it out down the season. I mean, do you see a path for him going forward this season where it gets beyond that?
No, I'm fine having him do that. Like, I don't think we need to rush him. And I think this year he's shown that he has a lot of work to do on the offensive end. And it's just ideally, if they're going to have Kanter being such a good offensive threat, it would be great if they could have Collins in there alongside him, but they don't have enough other people to spread the floor enough.
Yeah, they're
if
better,
they're relying,
but
it sounds like
if
they're relying on Evan Turner, he's also not a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
So you got 3 out of your 5 guys who can't make stuff happen outside the 3-point line. So no one's chasing him.
Which is death in today's NBA. So
yeah,
it's a
so
weird
speaking
spot.
of guys getting a little run, your favorite rookie.
Happy joy, happy joy.
you want to talk about the pride that you felt or the happiness you felt when you saw Anfernee Simons make it in the other day?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising because he came in the third quarter. Like I was like, hey, what?
Well, they were up by like 20,
but still, third quarter. That's usually not quite time yet, but I think again we're talking about Portland. Like, all right,
Scal got to play.
Yeah, that's true. But I think with Simons' case, I think it was, hey, all the things you've been working on, here you go try it out. He comes on the floor, and it was very, very obvious right away that Dame is like, no, you're going to take shots, you're going to create. Here's the ball, here you go, young fella. And he kind of proud papa away and let Simons go to work. He gets downhill and hits the pull up J off the pick and roll and looked comfortable and confident as hell as he took it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then they're absolutely trying to get him his first NBA 3. They're doing everything they can, and they set up the entire action for him to come off the pin down. And he curls, he steps into it, cans a 3, and I have not seen Terry Stotts with that much joy on his face in a long time. And it was a really cool scene because you had Bruce Ely caught Stotts in the background of this picture, smiling, while Simons has got his hands, at his knees, kind of shoulders pulled back, like, yeah, this is what I do. And it was a really cool moment, and everybody on the bench was just Dame, Nurk, everybody stoked for him. But there was a little bit of cockiness to the kid, and I like it. But it was
he was so excited. His jumping up and down part was so cute.
Yeah, I mean, and the way he stepped into and took that three, like, did that look like a 19-year-old kid who was scared of the moment?
I don't know, Dan. You read a lot into things that I don't necessarily see. He looked fine, but I'm just not.
When I look at most kids in the league, there's a hesitation to their game. There's something questioning them. And there are plenty of guys of varying talent levels who have the different types of confidences. There are guys in the league who are not all that talented, but their confidence compensates like there's no tomorrow. With Simons, and Dame has said it, Nurk has said it, a couple of guys made jokes about it post-game, like, this kid's maybe a little too confident in the best possible way. There's something about the kid that I find very likable on top of that, so I'm always excited when he gets out there.
Well, I am too, obviously, and I'm excited when the Blazers get ahead enough that he can come in and do all of that. But looking ahead, speaking of ahead, next week the Blazers are playing the Clippers, the Saints, and San Antonio. The schedule is, I would say, favorable.
It's not great, but it's not bad.
It's not easy,
yeah.
But I think it's favorable. It's not just considering the battle for the middle of the playoff tier.
2, 3, or
they gotta win these ones because they got. I can't believe they have to play Denver twice right at the end of the season. That's just brutal.
Well, it's been like that the last couple of years. Remember, Portland had knocked Denver out with one of those games.
Yeah, but they didn't have to play them twice in a row.
Not twice in a row, but there was the have a nice summer one from Nurkic that year was Denver once and then 2 games, then Denver again.
Yeah, no, they. I guess they have had to play. Anyway, I don't like it. I don't like it. So any of those between. Okay, so Denver, I don't think the Blazers are going to see them unless they fall, pretty much. But OKC, Utah, Houston. I mean, any of these teams, I think, provides a pretty difficult matchup. Right now, Blazers are 0-2 against Denver. They're 0-4 against OKC. They're 2-2 for Utah, and they're 2-1 against Houston. I think maybe Utah would be the one that I think I would choose. What about you?
It's a schedule when you look at it, you're just kind of like, it's not good, not great, not bad. I'm not thrilled about the possibility of what it means for Portland down the stretch. When you look at the way the records are right now, I was talking to Chad Doing on, I think it was Tuesday. A lot of people were really excited about that 2 seed, right? And we laid out the math necessary for Portland to get that 2 seed. And it was like, it's next to impossible. So those Denver games now, I think are going to be more for the rest of the seeding as opposed to like being the 2 or 3 seed. Does that make sense?
Oh no, I feel like they're 4, 5, or 6.
So you're firmly in that line now.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think you had gone there.
Where did you think I was?
I thought you thought that maybe that 3 was still there.
No, Dan, I worry way too much to think that we were going to get the 3, that they were going to get the 3
that's
seed.
That's fair.
I think it would be great, but I think, it's way too. OKC's a really good team.
Yes, so
and then there's Denver and Golden State. So I feel like 4 would be the highest one that they would get.
Well, what's funny about Golden State is they're dropping games to the Suns, and I literally
they just lost to the Suns.
Yeah, I have a clip of I don't know if anybody else caught it where the camera picked up Steve Kerr going to commercial where he said, "I am so tired of Draymond's shiza."
Oh, really? I did not see that.
So tonight you had Klay Thompson criticize the fans for not being loud enough at Oracle, the most expensive ticket in the NBA. You've got Kevin Durant calling out the team, Steve Kerr calling out Draymond. And I'm just like, this is good.
And meanwhile, poor Steph with no help or, no backup, no bench.
Yeah, I just don't feel sorry for these guys. Not in the least bit.
I don't feel. I like Steph, and I think that I like Steph and Klay. I want it to be like 5 years from now when those guys are like the old guys who stuck around, and they're like the Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker of the Golden State.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. But
when everybody else goes on, and it's just the two of them. Going kind of gray. They have kind of like the Rick Fox gray beards. They're still there.
It works.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, so do you have preferences or thoughts about where the Blazers could end up ultimately finishing? I mean, it's going to change every time we talk about it from here in the next 4 weeks. But
you have to win the games that you need to win. That means the Clippers. That means the Spurs. I get that those teams are...
Oh, they got to beat New Orleans.
I'm just talking about that's the same group of teams. Kind of how I look at that.
They have to never lose to New Orleans again, and then after this year, they also have to never lose to OKC again.
Yeah, they need to figure those out. But OKC is a terrifying matchup in the playoffs for this team. Their length, their athleticism, the ability to get after you is just it's too much for this team. I think right now. I'm not saying it's impossible because they've been in games, but how many games does it take for it to be called a pattern? 4 seems like a pretty good number to start with. Utah scares me to death. The depth of that team, the defense that they play, their coach. That's as weird as it sounds. I think that Houston's probably the best matchup of the 3. But then you have to deal with a series against James Harden and Chris Paul, and God, who wants that? And I'm not talking just from a skill standpoint, but I'm like actual watchability. Like who is hate watching that? It's inevitably it's us, but it's hard for me to pick down what seed they're going to get. Like tomorrow I'm going to go look at the schedule and like for all 4 of these teams and kind of pick wins and see who ends up where.
Yeah, I don't see any way to predict it. It's just going to be what it is, I guess.
Oh, I'm going to though.
Well, good for you. And then you're probably going to make some bet. Just don't involve me in it.
I'm going to involve.
How many bets do you have hanging out there now?
They're all coming due. I mean, they're all ones. They're all ones that I made to start the season. This has not been a good year for me. This is everything getting even for all the success that I've had over like the last 3 years. This is it all coming back on me.
I hope you've learned something.
Yeah. Every 4th year, don't make bets.
All right. We should probably
let's wrap it up. It's kind of a slower week.
Yeah, this is kind of not the most exciting part of this. It's the quiet part of the season.
It's the ramp
where
up.
They just need to.
We're not sure what's where, who's what, and what's going to happen yet. It's like it's still, still too foggy. You need to shake the Magic 8 Ball a little bit more here.
Yeah. You know what's going to happen? The women's hoops and talks are having a meetup on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We're going to watch the Clipper game. I feel like we've watched the Clippers several times.
Yeah, you guys going
our
not
meetups.
Watch Patrick Beverly.
Yeah, and we all just yell at Patrick Beverly, who, if nothing else, is always entertaining. He always does provide entertainment. So that's going to be on Tuesday, 7:30 at the McMinimans on Broadway, if anyone wants to come out and watch a game with us. And Blazers Edge Night, I guess, is coming up at the end of the month, so we've got that to look forward to. What else? What do you have coming up, Dan?
Blazers Outsiders is going back to the Rialto, but other than that, it's just kind of business as usual, just handling things as we go.
You know what? I guess we could be the Lakers right now.
How funny is it to see everybody getting shut down and them like basically trying to like backdoor a lottery pick?
I can't even keep track of what is going on down there.
I should say I feel bad for Brandon Ingram because his situation could be that of Chris Bosh's. So
yeah, that is sucks. A real shame to hear about his blood clot. Yeah. Is that what he has? DVT. God, that's so scary.
Yeah, because that stuff's like it's nothing he did. You know, and like I'd rather see somebody break a leg or tear a knee or like this stuff. This kind of crap, or like the kid from Baylor who with Marfans, like that stuff's like that stuff sucks. Like break a leg, dude. Don't have that stuff happen, man. I always hate that. So
yeah, that's a real shame for him.
But otherwise, screw the Lakers. Oh God, yeah, that's another one I got wrong. I had the Lakers firmly in the playoffs with the 5th seed, I think, to start the season.
Yeah.
So. Oh well.
So much for that one.
Oh darn, I got that one wrong. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty quiet. Like I said, I'll have dates and updates on the Outsider stuff, and you should see the new commercial circulating here now that I got a new boss. So there you go.
I did see a new commercial. Hey-o. It was strange.
Yeah, and the intents and purposes is still in the cycle. They have to like work something else out before they put some, I don't know, technical stuff. Yeah.
Your new one, it's like you're talking into the camera and like Shane's running around in the back and then like Joe puts his hand on your shoulder. And is it supposed to be like a horror movie? I don't quite understand it. Maybe it's just above my head.
You know what? It's not. Intensive purposes. So there you go. But yeah, other than that, just kind of holding it down. Like you said, we got Blazers Edge Night coming up at the end of the month on the 25th. It's also, I think it's like NBC Sports' night there, so we may be doing something. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what we have going on that night. But I think I'll be in the building. But other than that, that's what I got. You can find me on social media everywhere else for whatever you want, whatever you need. At DMarang, at DMARANG on Blazers Outsiders pre- and post-game show with Joe Simons and Shane Brennan on NBC Sports Northwest. And other than that, Tara, go ahead and take us out of here.
Alrighty, I am at TCB Biggs on Twitter. You can also follow Blazers Edge at Blazers Edge. You can visit blazersedge.com to find all kinds of great articles written by all kinds of interesting people. And you can also follow the Hoops and Talks podcast at Hoops and Talks on Twitter. We just had an episode came out that was like an overview of the CBA, just kind of like what it is, how it came about, what it's supposed to do, and answered a few questions that may be of interest to Blazer fans. The collective bargaining agreement is a massive topic, and we just barely scratched the surface. But if you're all interested in it, you should tune into the latest episode and just kind of learn a little bit about it. And with that, I guess that'll do it for us. We will talk to you next week. Bye.